Back again, another episode. Chef's Kiss. It's me, Peter, aka Sheff, here with Matt Devine. Matt, what's good, man?
What's good, Pete? Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm excited. It should be a great little ep post Christmas, pre-New Year's, that weird week in between.
Yeah,
but I'm excited, man. We got some baseball transactions happening. You know, the stove, I wouldn't consider it super hot right now, but it's sizzling.
No.
You know, there's a couple things at work, right? We got to still see where Snow goes, got to see where Belly goes, Montgomery. There's still a couple big dogs out there, so I'm excited.
They're marinating, I would say,
Yes.
right?
I like that.
Stove's still on, but yeah, there really hasn't been too much. We saw a couple bombs drop, obviously, with Yamamoto and Otani. But first thing, Matt, tell everybody who you are, what you do, so they can get a better idea of who we're talking to here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So my name's Matt Devine. I am the kind of founder, I run the Devine Sports Gospel with my brother Mike. We also have a friend, Nick, who helps us out a lot as well. We are a California-based sports and kind of pop culture kind of page, mainly focused on baseball, though. We're huge San Diego Padres fans, huge baseball fans in general. Tough year for our pods. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But, I'm really excited to just talk to you. We've been doing our kind of DSG is what we call it. We've been doing that for about 4.5, 5 years now. Definitely picked up steam in the last kind of 2 or 3 years, which has been really fun to see. Grew up diehard San Diego Chargers, diehard San Diego Padres fans. Obviously, the Chargers left, which sucks, but the Pods are still there. Big San Diego State Aztecs fans as well. Lived in California my whole life. I think we touched on it a little bit before the episode, but I feel like West Coast sports fans, you have the narrative, right, of, the East Coast bias. You got New York, Philly. I know Chicago's not in the East Coast, but those are kind of the hubs when you think sports. And I feel like California gets a little bit of a short straw when it comes to fandom sometimes, but there's some real fans out here. And one of the things that I really like with our page is to show, hey, Padres fans are diehard, right? I've lived up in San Francisco now for a while. Niners fans, Warriors fans, like there's some real fans out there. Don't miss a game, show up, season tickets. So I just like putting some a face to the California fandom for sure.
Yeah. So, Matt, as someone who was a fan of the Chargers when they were in San Diego, like, how do you feel about a team that up and leaves? Because the closest thing I would know is like a St. Louis. Obviously, I grew up in Chicago, and the Rams left St. Louis. I have some friends that were like, screw the Rams. I'm done with them. I'm going to pick a new team, or do they follow them out there? How was that for you?
So it's been tough in San Diego, to be completely honest. So I grew up, right, like going to as many games as I could. Probably never missed a Phillip Rivers start. Where also, for Phillip Rivers, favorite athlete of all time. So that shows how lucky of a San Diego fan I've been. But dude never missed a start. So pretty much from when I was gained consciousness, when I was like 7, to when I was able to legally drink, he never missed a start. So that was my guy. What I think about the Chargers leaving, right? So it was January 13th, 2017. I remember that day like vividly. Awful. It sucks, dude. They left an entire community behind. They did it so that they can gain. Dean Spanos and the Spanos family were like, hey, we can double our valuation. And I understand sports are a business, right? We learn that every day with some of these transactions. We see some of the teams like the Oakland Athletics, right? It sucks, but that is definitely a thing for some teams. The thing that sucks is the community that they leave behind, right? The only people that are still Chargers fans are former San Diego Chargers fans that still love football and want to stay with the team. Like, that's it. So, I don't know. I'm pretty bitter. I was way more bitter when it first happened. I'm kind of growing out of it. It helps that they suck, to be completely honest.
Sure.
If they were like really good, it'd be even like more of like kind of a dagger to the heart. But yeah, dude, the thing with the Chargers, and I couldn't admit it when they were in San Diego, but with their ownership, they'll never win anything. They never have. They never will. Dean Spanos is cheap. He will never invest. He has his son running football operations. It's a nepotism product. And, they're $41 million over the cap next year. So that situation is, a shitty situation. It's LA's problem now. That being said, when I come home for breaks and stuff and all my buddies are here and it's a Sunday, would I wish that we could go to a Chargers game at home? Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit in the past now, right? Obviously, like they've been in LA for a few years now. But is that still the team that you're kind of rooting for? Did you attach to some other team or what?
Yeah, dude. So this is like, I get this question all the time, right? And I mean, like, I had more Chargers jerseys than I had Padres jerseys growing up. The reason why I stopped rooting for the Chargers, and a lot of my friends as well, and this sounds funny, Pete, but 2020 NLDS, it was Padres Dodgers, and on Twitter, the Dodgers tweeted a graphic. On that graphic, it was the Chargers tweeted, graphic. On that graphic, it was Derwin James in a Dodgers jersey throwing out first pitch, some other, like Keenan Allen in a Dodgers jersey, and they said, "Let's go Dodgers," and they were playing the Padres. And that was just such a slap in the face to me, dude. I'm like, dude, you guys were in San Diego for 60 years. All of your fans that, you know, those 2006, we should have won the Super Bowl with LT. Like, that place was packed all the time. Like, obviously the last few years when they didn't really invest in the product, a lot of opposing fans. But that's what's going to happen when you have a team in San Diego and you're playing the Bills and, you know, Jeff and Lucy get one vacation a year. Oh, should we go to Cincinnati or San Diego? Yeah, you go to San Diego, right? Like, that happens. Them tweeting that was like the final straw for me, man. I said F them after that, and I haven't supported them since. Obviously, some of my friends are like, "You're really going to do that?" After a social media intern probably just like was forced to post that. But it was just kind of the vibe of like, I don't know. I'm someone that...
You've been there for 5 seconds, and you're posting pictures with them, and like, you've had a whole community here that you're leaving behind.
You left behind a real community, man. And as someone that like is very proud to be from San Diego, someone that loves the sports, I love the city, and just to kind of like F these guys, right? Like, hey, why not only are we gonna leave, not change our name, not saying that the Rams should feel bad, like St. Louis fans should feel bad too, but moving from St. Louis to LA is completely different than moving from San Diego to an hour and a half up the freeway. And then still keeping the same name and everything else, except for changing your name to L.A. and acting like you don't care about the city that you lived in for 60 years, right? Like, remember the Supersonics? They'd go from Seattle and then they moved to Oklahoma City Thunder. That's a clean split. Like a clean split like that is good. That's a good thing. If they would have moved to L.A. and became like the, you know, LAC Bolts or something like that. Even now, Bolts is a little different, but like change the name, change the branding. Clean split. All of my buddies that are still fans probably would have split with him, right? But because they kept the name and just moved to LA, it's so scummy to me, man. Like, even if they would have named
they didn't
like
die, right? Like, you would rather just had them die, kill the franchise and start new.
Couldn't agree more. And it's also funny, Pete, if you ever are down here and we go to like a Dodgers Pods game, you're going to hear everybody in the crowd screaming, "Beat LA," right? And I felt dirty doing on a Saturday night in September, doing a "Beat LA" chant, and then Sunday morning rooting for LA. Like, that's a little bit of a height. Like I'm like, is that really like a legit thing to do? I'm like, I was screaming at the top of my lungs, "Beat LA," when, you know, Cronenworth was up to bat. But then the next morning, I'm cheering on Justin Herbert with the LA Chargers jersey on. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, and I understand.
And you wonder why they have that West Coast bias, right? They're like, these guys are confused.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And it's like, I
but
don't
they
know.
do that to you. They did that to you guys.
They screwed us. Me and my brother, man, I wish he was on here too. If you get him a couple Modelo's deep, he goes on a pretty nice little rant about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, and it's something too where like I've grown to be less bitter about it. First couple years I was very bad. But you know, it's just like anything, right? It's growing up. It does suck not having a football team though. I'm more just betting and fantasy now. Which is like, it's kind of nice because I don't feel as depressed on Sundays as I used to when like Phil would come in with like a 2-minute drive and throw a pick, right? Like that happened like at least 6 times a year. That feeling I don't have anymore, but also the feeling of like winning a big football game, especially on prime time. Like, there's nothing that beats that when that's your team, man. Like, for you, like, when you have like an Eagles or a Bears like big win, like that feeling is like, because in football there's only 17 games, right? Plus the playoffs.
Right.
So baseball, you have a big win. We got fucking 3 more games in the series. Like, football, you beat your rival at home in like a crazy way. Like, that's the year. You got maybe one more on the road, but that's it. Like, that's huge.
Yeah, and that's why I'm all for like changing, not changing, but if your team, and we're going to get into this on the baseball front, but like you said, if your team doesn't choose to invest in players, doesn't, change the culture, things that need to be coaching, bro, my time, I'll never get back, right? You're never going to get time back. You can get money back easily. I spend 3 hours every Sunday watching your team, because I grew up in the same town or the same area, and you guys fucking suck for the last 30 years. Bro, I'm done. I'm done. I want to go watch someone else who's actively trying to win. And I have the same feeling with the McCaskies in Chicago. The Bears are never going to win anything until the McCaskies sell the team, because it's the same old mentality: shitty coach, shitty quarterback, good defense, and you pray for special teams. Like when they went to the Super Bowl with Devin Hester returning kicks and Urlacher and Briggs on defense, and you got Rex Grossman as quarterback. Like, you get lucky sometimes. So I'm all for changing teams, dude, and especially like by location. Like I said, Phillies fan now.
Yeah, dude.
Eagles, because this is my area. This is where I live now. So like that's who I'm rooting for, and they're actually trying to win a championship. You know what I mean?
And it's funny, you could tell too. It's pretty simple to tell what teams are trying to win and stuff. And I feel like we're going to talk about baseball in a second here, but you could tell in baseball too, right? Like, there's some teams, like the Kansas City Royals are a great example this offseason. Like, the Kansas City Royals spent money this offseason, right? They spent, I think right now they spent like maybe the second or third most money. Do I think the Kansas City Royals are going to win a World Series in the next 5 years? Absolutely not. That being said, it's nice to see at least your ownership give a little bit of an F to make the product somewhat bearable to watch during the summer, right? Because, it's tough when you see a team like the Oakland A's, right? Like, I live up in San Francisco now. I went to a Zach Bryan concert with a couple buddies. We get there. Concert starts at like 8:45. He gets on at like 9. We get there at like 7:30. The A's are playing the Royals, right? It's the third inning. We go on StubHub.
Barn burner.
$2 seats.
Yeah.
$2 seats. It was cheaper to
A's Royals. That sounds about right.
Oh, cheaper to go to the A's, go inside and pregame at the A's game than at the concert, bro. And we already had our tickets to the concert. So we went, caught 4 innings. Like, the Coliseum's a classic vibe. But, dude, you look there. There's still, that's a thing too. There's still, a couple people in their like 60s, 70s, couple that bring their scorecard that I know are there probably every single game that the Oakland A's are just saying F you to, right? And like, I know it's a business, but what really pisses me off is when you see these diehard fans who grew up with the team, who grew up with the memories associated with the team too. I think that's what people don't understand is like, obviously you love the team, right? And like, I want someone to root for every Sunday. But I look back on my childhood, and some of my favorite memories were going over to my friend's house for a Chargers game, right? Like, those are the memories that, like, like going to the, like, it used to be called Jack Murphy. Then when I grew up, it was Qualcomm Stadium. Going to the Q, right? And, like, those memories of watching, like, I remember going to, like, a Raiders-Chargers game and, like, seeing the black hole, right? And, like, how much energy there was. And, like, my dad being like, do not walk over there. Like, I was, like, in middle school, right? And, like, obviously, like, in full Chargers shit. And it's just funny, like, those memories don't go away, but it sucks that when I have kids, they won't have that, right? And that kind of pisses me off a little bit. And like, I think that's
here.
Sorry,
I was gonna say, like, what you were saying about the Royals appreciating a team that is spending money, because what are you trying to do? You said they're not going to win in the next 5 years. More than likely, that is correct, right? Yeah. But then we could also look at like the Rangers, who before Simeon and Seager, they didn't spend anything. Then they spent $500 million, and now they won a World Series. So I think building culture, and that's like when we talk about this, like with branding, same thing with our brand, and like building a culture is what brings talent to you, right? Why do people want to go play for the Dodgers? Why do people want to play in San Diego? San Diego's the most beautiful spot. It's a great location. You have talent around you. So teams that don't have a sweet location on the West Coast or the East Coast or a historic ballpark like Kauffman Stadium, you need to start building a culture, and you do that by bringing in talent, upgrading some stuff. So like, that's one of those things that goes into bringing in talent. If you don't have location and you don't have a winning culture, you need to start building a winning culture somehow.
I think you are spot on, as always. But no, I think it's true, man. I think something that I learned from this 2023 San Diego Padres is you have to invest, but you also have to build a culture. And I think culture, honestly, might be ahead of investing to an extent. And when I mean ahead, I don't mean that you could be the A's and not invest at all and still have this insane culture. Because people forget those late 2010s A's teams were absolutely stacked with Bob Melvin. You had Simeon, Matt Chapman, Matt Olson. Like, that team was littered with all-stars, littered with guys who are playing big baseball games in October now with $200 million contracts. But that team was cheap and young, and they just said, F it. Sean Murphy was their catcher. Like, you look at those teams, you're like, holy shit. Like, this team would be the best team in baseball if they ever paid. They never paid anyone. That's the problem.
Same thing with the Marlins. Yelich,
Exactly.
Romulto, Stanton, right?
Well, the Marlins are such an interesting case, right? Because you look at them and you're like, their team now, their young pitching core, they are. I know it's not really related to what we're talking about, but like if I was a Marlins fan, I think Jesus Luzardo can win a Cy Young. Like, I think he's so good. Like, I think this guy. And then you got Yuri Perez, you got Edward Cabrera. Obviously, Sandy's one. He's hurt right now, but like, you look at these guys, you're like, dude, like, how can't you have the number one thing in baseball to be successful, in my opinion, and I've learned as a Padres fan who hasn't seen a lot of success, is young, controllable pitching is everything, bro. And guys that can go out and actually give you innings, right? We see with the pitching contracts that are coming out right now, right? Yamamoto got $325 million. He's never pitched an inning in the major leagues, right?
Right.
That's the direction that we're going to, right? Like, these pitching contracts, Snell's going to get over $200 million probably. Like, these dudes are getting paid. So if you don't want to spend $1 billion every offseason, you have to build a culture. And in that culture, number one thing, or I wouldn't say number one, but one of the big things is developing starting pitching that can give you innings. The Padres haven't developed a starting pitcher that has made an all-star game since Jake Peavy in 2007, bro. That's bad. That can't happen, right? Because what you could do when you develop these pitchers, how did the Dodgers get Glasnow? Ryan Pepio. What was Ryan Pepio? Developed by the Dodgers, right? Ryan Pepio is going to be a stud for the Rays. They don't get Glasnow without Pepio. No shot, right? Or they put in Bobby Miller, or they put in Emmett Sheehan. And I hate the Dodgers, but they are low-key the gold standard when it comes to player development. And now they're actually, I mean, they've always spent money. I think what they're doing with the Ohtani contract is kind of bullshit, to be completely honest. But they're investing. You can't hate on a team for investing, right? Like, they want to win. And what they do, the best teams in baseball, which are like maybe 3, are the teams that can spend money and want to spend money and also develop talent. Way too many teams do one or the other. There's only 3 teams that do both. The Braves do a really good job at that. The Astros back in the day, they're stopped spending money for some reason now. And then the Dodgers. And who are the 3 teams that you always see in October?
100%. And I would say I got to see it happen fully with the Cubs.
Yes,
so back in 2016, the Cubs, when they had the young core, and then they went out and got some pitching like
Yeah, Jake Arrieta on that team, right? You had
I'm talking about the closer.
Chapman?
Cuban Missile.
Chapman.
They go out and get Chapman. They give up Gleyber Torres for Chapman. So like adding to those pieces, but they had that core. The whole point is you want it, like you said, develop that farm system, get them on your major league field. And you saw it. You saw it with Chris Bryant. Anthony Rizzo came in a trade early in his career, but still very much homegrown. Addison Russell. Trade. I'm sorry?
The Padres traded Anthony Rizzo for Andrew Castor. One of the many bad trades. But sorry, I didn't mean to.
But that's the goal, right? Is to develop young talent and have your farm system eventually on the field, and then kind of recoup your farm system. But that's the goal, is because like you said, then they're controllable, and then they're homegrown.
Well, Pete, I have a question for you. So obviously, you witnessed that 2016, right? The Cubs winning their first World Series in 106 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And how much was it?
108.
108, my bad. So they win, right? Billy Goat Curse. You have all these young dudes, right? You have a city full of, you have Rizzo and Brian and Javi and, just studs everywhere, right? Schwarber's coming up as a rookie that hits nukes. And they don't pay anyone other than, they give out like maybe one contract to one of those like core guys, right? And now that team of the past is pretty much gone.
Mm-hmm.
Do you look at where Javi is with his contract and, Rizzo and Bryant? And Rizzo obviously had a pretty solid year in 2022, got hurt last year and had like that weird little concussion thing. So he's probably actually still a solid player, but Chris Bryant's been an absolute bust for the Rockies, right? Mm-hmm. Javi Baez might be the worst contract in baseball. Do you look back and say, in the moment, you're like, why the F aren't we paying these guys? And now, is it kind of a weird thing where you're like, I think the Cubs are in a way better spot because they didn't pay these guys?
Yeah, 100%. See, I felt that it was like a breakup that needed to happen. You know, there's
Okay.
some fans that have like the nostalgia, like, oh, let's bring them back because they're gonna get. You got to pay these guys. Like
Yeah.
they're still at the top of their game. And you saw what happened to Javi, and I called it. I made a video and I said Javi is going to fall apart in Detroit because they don't have that culture. You're gonna go out and play 80 games in front of who? In front of 3,000 people on a Tuesday in April. You're not going to produce. You're not going to have that electricity that you're feeding off of that you had at Wrigley Field and people hitting bombs. You're not going to have that. So I knew Javi was not going to do well in Detroit. Rizzo's getting older. Every summer he's got a back issue. You know, you kind of getting that. Chris Bryant, my goodness, man. I feel like that was like the prophet child. Like when he came, dude, when they signed him in Chicago, there's a big billboard of his face with the Adidas stuff. And we were just like, I mean, he's like the most handsome dude in the world. We're just like, he's on our team. This is so great. But I wasn't upset when they didn't sign everybody. I was sad, dude. Like, I'll be honest. Like, I've never felt, I don't give a shit, dude. These people don't, they don't care about me. Like, I love my teams and stuff. That's great. But like, I got a child. I got a wife. Like, I got a real life. But I felt like first time like real sadness when I saw them like just like leaving. I was like, there goes Rizzo. Javi got time. Like, dude, it's never going to be, because you had that 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 run. And you see those windows, dude. That's the thing in sports and baseball. There is a window, 3 to 5 years, where you have to win now, and we got to spend money to win now because that window is going to close. It always does. So it's just, I guess, like seeing that window close.
It always closed, and it sucks because people don't want to admit that it's going to close. The Astros window, I'm not saying it's shut. Astros window is maybe a year away from being shut, right? Because you have to look the way that teams like the Dodgers and some of these other like kind of big, the Rangers are in a really good spot right now too, right? The big deal is spending money, but it's spending money on the right people, right? When you're the Mets and you hand out $82 million worth of for two 40-year-old pitchers, and they're both off your team by the trade deadline, that's spending money the wrong way, right? And that's fine, that people make mistakes. But there's a level of, and I think the Mets did the right thing. Cut their losses, right? They weren't going to win a World Series last year. Get some people back and move on. But you look at the Rangers, right? And I think it's the mix like you mentioned earlier, and I think this is it's building a culture, right? It's spending money on the right guys and building a culture. Corey Seager, when healthy, I think is top 3 player in baseball. I absolutely love the dude. I think he absolutely rakes. Every time he's up to the plate, I think he's going to hit a double in the gap. You have him, you have Marcus Semien, and then you got Evan Carter coming up, right? You got Josh Jung at third. You have all these rookies that they kind of developed in their minor league system come up and give them big plays, right? Evan Carter is 20 years old, and he's batting third in the World Series on a World Series winning team. And who's batting first for the Arizona Diamondbacks? Corbin Carroll, who's 21, right? There's a reason. And then what all the small market teams are doing, and they finally learned, is, hey, if I'm the Milwaukee Brewers and I have the number 2 prospect in baseball, Jackson Chourio, and we're a notoriously cheap organization, right? Like nastily cheap. And we're going to be rebuilding. How about I sign this dude before he plays an MLB game because I trust him, and I'm going to sign him for 8 years, $100 and X million. And I have a guy. I have a piece for the next, decade, right? I have an actual piece because the teams like the Brewers, no one's going to Milwaukee if they're not handing out contracts, right? So you have to develop. You have to. And the Brewers have had some good ass teams, right? You look, you're like, the Mariners are a perfect example too. Julio Rodriguez, what the team that did it first. I'm not trying to toot our own horns, but Tatis's contract was the kind of staple of that, right? Tatis has that incredible 2019, and comes out. He was a number 2 prospect in baseball. I was at his first game, gets a hit off Mad Bum. First year, takes San Diego by storm, right? Doesn't win NL Rookie of the Year. He was hurt for a little bit. Pete Alonso won. But takes SD by storm. February of 2020, so before COVID, I'm listening to sports radio. I'm on Twitter. Fernando Tatis Jr. in agreement on a 12-year, $340 million contract with the San Diego Padres, right? I run outside of my house. I'm screaming. I'm calling my brother. I'm calling all our buddies. Calling to sports talk radio. The next day, I buy season tickets. I've had season tickets now for 3-4 years. Full game. I don't even live in San Diego. I have 81 games a year. And that season ticket list, as we then get, we sign guys like, we had Manny at that time, but we trade for a Blake Snell. We trade for a Yu Darvish. We start investing for the first time in my life, right? You go to San Diego last year, bro, Petco Park, 63 sellouts of 81 games. We never even came close to like 30, bro. How does that happen? Oh, we finally fucking invested in our team. The issue, though, is, you hand out all these big contracts, a lot of fat cats, right? Oh, I go 0 for 4, but I'm making $20 million a year, and I'm playing in front of a sold-out ballpark. I have a hot wife, and I live in Coronado. Shit could be worse, right? Hey, I don't need to get to the cage tomorrow morning, right? I'm gonna go home, eat some sushi, go to bed, right? 0 for 4, who cares? I'm paid for another 10 years. That's why you need Evan Carters to come up. You need some of these young dudes who are like, if I don't ball out on the MLB level, I'm out of the league, or I'm going back to El Paso. Our team last year, and I know we were going to talk about the pods, 2023 pods, way too many fat cats. We had way too many contracts. Bob Melvin couldn't handle the egos, right? And shit just fell apart. This year, after they got shit on by the media, right, and deservedly so, everybody's hyping up the Dodgers. That's where I like to be as a kind of a – San Diego's an underdog town, right? We lost our football team to L.A. Padres have never won shit. So, I like being the underdog. Last year, everybody was like, third best World Series odds, the Padres. That never works in San Diego. Whenever the Chargers were like that, we wouldn't miss the playoffs. Literally every single time. So, I don't know, man. Pardon me. I'm excited, though. I think it's a combination, like you mentioned, though. I think it's culture and investing.
Sure, and you saw it, Dodgers see it. Just because you spend the most money, it really doesn't mean wins, right? We see that with the Diamondbacks. We see that with an 87-win Phillies team who beats the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks who beat the Dodgers. So once you get to the playoffs, anything is possible. And that's what I love about baseball, how unpredictable it is, because there's so many factors. There's so much variance in baseball. Did you enjoy that this season? I know I didn't personally. You loved it, yeah.
I'm just such a dude. And the thing
Braves,
with me,
dude.
right? I'm diehard Padres, but dude, I watch. What's cool about being on the West Coast too, for everybody listening who you're like, these West Coast people. What is nice about being on the West Coast is, I get off work at 3:34, right? And I hit the gym. I have MLB TV on my phone. I'm doing my little workouts, right? I get home. I could watch the Phillies Braves game, and then the Pods game, and I have MLB beginning on. I watch everything, and I get to bed. I make dinner. It's 9 o'clock, bro. It's perfect.
Yeah, dude.
It's so nice.
There are some.
I don't have to wake up when I go back east to visit my cousins and watch a Pods game. It's brutal, dude. I'm
bro, 10:10 start time. 10:10 start time. And I'm like, dude, if I'm not drinking, there's no way I'm staying up.
Insane. I will say it is nice though. When I was back in New York visiting some friends in September. It is kind of fun when you go to a bar and the game's on, actually on at night. Because the thing with California, right? Monday Night Football ends at 8:30, right? So if you go out to a Monday Night Football bar, 8:30's done. It's nice to get to bed early, but sometimes you want the action, right? You kind of want to be clubbing a little bit,
action,
kind of getting after it. So yeah, it's cool. But no, it is nice because I get the opportunity to watch so much baseball, right? And dude, there's just, the league is honestly, I think, in such an awesome spot. Obviously, the Dodgers, I think, and we were going to touch on this, what the Dodgers are doing with those contracts, right? And
yeah.
You hit it on the head perfectly, Pete. The thing with the MLB playoffs and why it's the best playoffs, in my opinion, is in the NFL, bro, the Cardinals make the playoffs somehow at the Arizona Cardinals make it at, at 7-10, and they somehow make it. They're going to get their shit pumped in the first round, bro. And it's not even going to be close. The thing with the MLB playoffs is a team like the Diamondbacks can make it, bro, and if Zach Gallen has a fucking 7-inning, 2-hit performance and Corbin Carroll has a 3-run home run, boom. Boom. The Braves, who won 106 games, are on the rocks, bro. And that's what's electric. That makes the sport fun. I told my buddy who's a big Dodgers fan, and he agreed. The Dodgers did not pay Ohtani and Yamamoto and Glasnow for anything other than the month of October for the next 10 years. They do not care about the regular season. Every single one of my friends that's a Dodgers fan could give less of a shit about an NL West championship or a title. They don't. Yeah. They literally don't care. The NL West means nothing to them, right? For me as a Pods fan, if we won the NL West, I'd be going around town, bro. I'd be like, hey, let's go, because we haven't won in a while. That being said, how the MLB playoffs is structured, hey, winning your division is nice because you make the playoffs. But other than that, bro, you gotta stay hot, right? Look at what the Dodgers
wild card teams. wild
Look
card
at the
teams
Phillies.
are
The
the
Phillies.
team like the NL East. Braves wrapped it up with like 2 or 3 weeks left in the
Yeah.
season. It's like, all right, Philly's going to get that first wild card spot or second wild card spot, whatever it is, and they bounce them anyway, dude. So like you said, when you win the division, it's almost like, yeah, we won the division, but I don't give a shit because those wild card teams are dangerous, you know?
That's why, dude. Look at the Phillies. Like, you have two dogs, right? I think to be successful in the playoffs, you got to have 3 or 4 dudes in the pen that you could trust, right? That you know, hey, Philly's downfall was Craig Kimbrell, to be completely honest, right? He blew that save.
100%.
And you look back, you need to have 4 dudes that are reliable in the pen. Like the Rangers had that Josh Sorbs guy came out of nowhere, and he was absolutely nasty in the playoffs. But you look at a team like the Phillies, right? There isn't a pitcher in baseball, I think, right now that I'd rather have on the bump in a must-win playoff game than Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler's nails, bro. You have Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. Those are 2 dogs that can get you 7 innings, right? Like against any team in baseball. That's the difference between teams that win in the playoffs and teams that don't. They have 2 dogs. Merrill Kelly was a dog for the Diamondbacks, bro. Zach Gallen had a couple shitty starts, but he was a dog. That's why the Dodgers could win 115 games. The reason why they weren't, the Dodgers fans could have told you last year they weren't going to win shit. Lance Lynn is not going to give you 7 innings and 1 run of baseball, bro. He's going to give up 4 straight meatball marineras to the fucking Dimebacks
Bro,
and lose.
I remember watching that like, no way this is happening.
Bro, I was watching it with some of my buddies, and like we all live in SF, so it's like like the whole bar is like Giants fans, and like I'm wearing my Padres shit to be a dick, and then my buddy's a Dodgers fan, and everybody's like the bartender bought him a free shot because he felt bad. He's like, oh man, I feel bad for this kid. Everybody's like hounding him right at the bar. But it's funny, dude. Like baseball is the best for many reasons, but I really do think it's the best because I would not be surprised if next year you have another one of these random ass teams come up and just start balling, bro, right? You're like, oh, how did this team make the ALCS, right? And then, like, the Yankees, right? The Yankees fucked up big time not getting Yamamoto, bro. Like, humongously not getting – like, that is as big of a fumble as it gets because Juan Soto is going to get $550 million, bro. Like, he's going to get a ton of money, and they did the 1-year rental, right? They gave us a ton back. We gave up a ton for Juan Soto. He did give us that LCS, which was fun. But – Yankees give up all that money, or the Yankees give up, Michael King, who's going to be our number 3, who the more I look at it, is going to be nasty. Drew Thorpe is a stud. We got 2 good bullpen pieces in Randy Vasquez and Johnny Brito. Kyle Higashioka, backup catcher vibe, all for 1 year of Soto, making $33 million. Their pitching still sucks outside Garrett Cole. Their pitching sucks. And you go,
Nestor can capture,
Nestor
early in the season maybe.
But who's your right now? Unless Carlos Rodon goes back to his old self, he looked terrible last year. That being said, people have bad first years in cities. Game 2, you're the Yankees. You're playing in the ALC or ALD or AL wildcard series. Game 2, you guys lost game 1 somehow. Who do you pitch? It doesn't matter if you have Soto and Judge. If you're pitching a guy that can't get you 5 innings, like that's what happens to the Dodgers.
What I was thinking today, like when I knew we were gonna talk, is if I'm Yamamoto and I'm going to a country I've never been to, never really lived in, nobody speaks the same language as I do. All these teams want me to come. Where would I feel most comfortable?
Yeah.
I would want to go to a team that is going to win now, and I can go be with my buddy who I just won a World Baseball Classic with, and live in LA, and like there's still isn't there like a huge Asian population or like.
The more you think about it, the more obvious it was the whole time, bro. Like
right?
this dude grew up a Dodgers fan, I'm pretty sure too. Like it happens. Okay. And the thing with him, right? Once Ohtani signed, you're like, all right, Yamamoto's coming. Why wouldn't he, right, dude?
Right.
The only thing that Ohtani when he first signed, I was like, oh, okay, like. $700 mil, right? Like that contract hit's gonna be crazy. Once I found out the bullshit deferral thing, I'm like, Yamamoto's a Dodger easily, bro. Like they're gonna go crazy.
That's why they don't have to
trade for. They might trade for another guy too, bro. Like I think they're going all in right now.
So give me your thoughts on that. Give me your thoughts. I want to know these large contracts, good or bad for baseball. I just want to lay the groundwork and say. Like I made a video on Ohtani and Yamamoto and stuff, and I don't care how teams spend money if you defer it. Like that doesn't bother me. I like seeing teams paying players. I mean, that's a lot of money. Do I think you're worth, to play baseball? Probably not. That's another.
I don't think
thing.
anyone's worth that much.
But you're calling up other organizations, I think, and other teams and fans are going to look at this and be like, dude, the Dodgers are spending money. And I'm not saying every organization can afford to pay that much, but to go and get pieces and to start trying, because fans are going to be looking and be like, what the fuck are we doing, dude? Why are we spending no money? Like, you guys have money. These companies have money. The TV rights, $1.84 billion gets paid to these MLB teams just for TV rights alone. So it's like, you're almost like calling up these other teams, being like, yeah, we're spending, like I said, you just put your nuts on the table and you're like, yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. So I think it's good.
I think it's good overall. I think it's a little difficult to, the Ohtani is a very tough case study because he's the only player that would be able to do that sort of referral, right? With how big of a global brand he is and how much money he makes off the field. That he is able to take a $2 million, right, from the Dodgers because he's making $40 million off the field every year, right? Like, he is a global brand. So comparing that to an Alex Bregman can't do that. Like, he can't do a $2 million. And Alex Bregman's a fantastic baseball player. But he couldn't – so the deferral
He's
thing –
not an international superstar.
The deferral thing will always be a little bullshit to me. I am a little bit of a jaded Padres fan. But the overall idea of what the Dodgers are doing and what a lot of teams do and spending money is how you have to invest in your product. It's like anything in sport. It's anything in life, right? Any business. How can you be a successful business if you don't invest in, like, for you, Pete, what if you were using a bullshit mic right now or a trash webcam? Like, what? Like, there's so many things that go into it. And when you first started out, guess what? You were just spending it, right? You weren't making any money.
Yeah.
So, like, off your content and right, like, so, like, for me, this mic, 300 whatever bucks, I just bought it because I was like, oh, I care about what I want to present for these different MLB clubs. If you want to care, if you're the owner of the San Diego Padres, rest in peace, Peter Seidler, a god to San Diego, honestly. All he wanted to do was win, so he handed out these crazy contracts, and he really wanted to win. And that 2022 NLDS, when we knocked down the 113-win Dodgers at home and it was raining, that moment for San Diegans, I will be on my deathbed thinking about that moment, bro. Like, in hopefully a long time. But, like, that's what investing in your product does. It builds fans for life. It builds memories. And if you're a team like, the Pittsburgh Pirates that's never handed out more than like a, 4-year, $60 million contract to a player, what are you telling to your fans? Go watch a Pittsburgh Steelers game. Terrible towels everywhere. Those dudes are locked in. You can't tell me those dudes can't walk across the street and be that dialed in. I remember some Pirates games in 2015 when Kutch was the MVP. They beat, was it Johnny Cueto, when they were doing the Johnny Cueto chant? And, like, dude, that stadium was electric. What are you telling those fans when you don't invest in your product? It's disgusting. Right. So what the Dodgers are doing outside the deferral thing, that's good for baseball. It's good to invest because it shows, like you said, it tells other teams, get your money up. We know you have it. Some teams don't have it. And when you don't have it, Padres lost their TV deal, right? We don't have the money that we had before that. What do you do when you don't have it? Okay, you could either cry poor and be a bitch, or you could sack up. You can go in. You could develop the best talent you possibly can. You could get a top 5 farm. You can go and hand out the contracts that you can hand out. Make smart deals, right? Get the right pitching coaches in there and figure out a way to build a competitive team. And then with the prospects that you get, trade them away or let them play. And then when you trade them, get some legit pieces back, and boom, you're the Arizona Diamondbacks. Or like, boom, you're this other team. Arizona Diamondbacks, their payroll is not that high. And they were 3 games away from winning a World Series, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there's so many ways to win in baseball, and that's why it's great. It's not just one way. But you can't look at the Dodgers and say that's bad when teams like the Oakland Athletics are a disgrace to baseball. And it's not the players' fault. It's not the fans' fault. It's John Fisher. It's the people that allow that shit to happen. John Fisher got rewarded a $1 billion stadium in Las Vegas for being the worst owner in professional sports outside of the ones that do really, like, illegal shit. Like, that's terrible. He should never be rewarded that. And guess what? He's going to get that, and he's going to sell the team, He's going to get a ton of money, and he's going to ride off in the sunset. And, you know, Sally and Joe, like we were talking about earlier, who show up to every Oakland A's home game, are going to be screwed.
Right.
And the fans are the ones that get screwed. The owner of the teams that don't invest are the worst, man.
Well, what they don't realize is a lot of the owners will treat it like a restaurant. That's what I've been told. Is they treat it like a restaurant. You keep your overhead low, you keep it operational, and you keep reeling in the profits. Right? Nobody looks into, well, how much did they make this year? How much did they make that year? They keep it going. They keep it going until there is some kind of friction to where it's like, bro, what are we doing? Sell the team shirts when you start seeing them. Like, and I see it a lot with like White Sox in Chicago because Jerry Reinsdorf fucking sucks, dude.
Yeah.
Don't spend any money. Don't do anything. You got a manager who's literally falling asleep behind the wheel with La Russa last year. You have like so many of these issues, and like, fans, especially baseball fans that, you watch, in the middle of June on a Tuesday at 7:00. It's like, bro, this is my time, bro. Like, let's do something. Let's, so when fans start to realize that and put some pressure on them.
Yeah, man, and there's kids. The thing I always think about is like, being the kid playing Little League Baseball, right? And you're in your hometown. And your hometown team's the Chicago White Sox. And you go to the ballpark and you don't recognize any. That's the thing with me as a Padres fan, bro, growing up. We had a couple years, like 2006, where we had a couple, won the NL West, right? And like that was back before the Dodgers were like this like evil empire, right? So we won a couple years. 2007, I don't remember if you remember this, but like the Matt Holliday game 163 didn't touch home plate shit. Those teams were fun, right? But that was when I was growing up and playing Little League Baseball. So like I would go with my Little League friends like to the Padres game, and like Brian Giles was in right field. And like those memories of like some of those guys, like Khalil Green was our shortstop. And like those dudes are legends to me forever, right? If you go to a White Sox game now, their big contract this offseason has been Martin Maldonado, bro. Like, dude, this team is like, how are you going to get fans and, like, young kids? Those kids are going to be those guys like me that buy season tickets in 20 years, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's how you do it. Like, you have to invest. Jerry Reinsdorf's a scrub. John Fisher's a scrub. Like, I understand it's a business, and I'll never be in that spot where I can say, oh, I'm in their shoes, right? Because guess what? As much as we're diehard fans, not everyone is, and I understand you own a team, and some people are just like, hey, I need to make money. That's fine. But they have to realize what they're doing is bad for baseball and bad for the overall health of the sport. What the Dodgers are doing sucks for me as a Padres fan, but it's not bad for the overall health of the sport. Not investing and not trying is bad. When I show up to the Oakland A's game and the tickets are $2, that's bad. When the players are like playing like it's like a Cal baseball game, bro. You go to the Berkeley Stadium, like across the street. There's more people at the Cal Berkeley college baseball game against UW than the Oakland Athletics game against the Kansas City Royals. It's crazy.
Sure. I am interested to see what that team's going to look like in Vegas, though. Vegas is like a hub now. It's pretty cool. Like, I'm not saying that's great that they left, but I mean, Vegas is going to be like that spot where it's like, these new teams or new franchises are going to move to or whatever. Obviously, it's going to have to be indoors because it's like 120 degrees out. But they're going to. I'm sure they'll have
similar to like Chase Field.
Yeah,
dude, Vegas is going to be sick. It sucks for Oakland. Like my buddies from Oakland and like the East Bay, absolutely sucks for them. That being said, it'd be pretty awesome to go to a Padres Vegas A's game whenever they play, right? I will be there.
Yeah.
Like with your buddies and stuff. Get a spot at like the Wynn, bro. Have a weekend. Go to a couple Pods games. Southwest flight home. Money, bro.
So what do you think for the Pods 24? Obviously 23 was bad. Didn't meet expectations at all. What are you looking at for 2024, this upcoming season?
Yeah, dude.
Expectations.
So I think, what's the quote? Expectations are the thief of joy. I love that quote because last year or something. Yeah, it was like something like that, right? Last year,
comparison. I think it's like comparison.
Are the thief of joy. Yeah. So with expectations, right? Last year we had Fan Fest, which is I feel like a lot of teams do it, but we did a Fan Fest at Petco last year in February, and there were like 60,000 people there, bro. It was absolutely insane. Like, it looked like Coachella. And you had Manny get on stage and Xander get on stage and Soto and Tatis. And they're like, we're going to win. Like, we're going to do it. It's kind of like what the Heat did, right? It's like not one, not two. And right when I saw that, I was like, this is definitely going to backfire. But I was in the moment, right? So I was like, let's go. Like, getting super hyped. Last year was very disappointing. You look at the statistics, right, and the stats. You're like, how did this team underperform? Number one reason why we underperformed was we were the worst clutch hitting team possibly in Major League Baseball history. We were so bad with runners in scoring position. We went 2-13 in extra inning games. There's so many things that happen that are like kind of statistical anomalies, but at the same time, when a bunch of statistical bad anomalies happen, probably means your team has a culture issue or something in the clubhouse where you can't come together. Look at a team like the Phillies in the playoffs, right? Like that energy that they have as a team, like those dudes are like on the top of the bench, like, you know, bright, like guys like Garrett Stubbs, San Diego dude, right? They have like he's chief vibes officer and shit. Like we didn't have that last year. Like we had too many egos floating. Mm-hmm. I love Juan Soto. I think he's already probably going to be a Hall of Famer, like with the trajectory of his career. One of the best hitters I've ever seen. I think he walks a little too much. I think if he's a little bit more aggressive, he'd probably hit 10 more home runs, but that's another story. Soto sent him out, right? Had to be done with the lack of a TV deal, and you know we went for it. It sucks that we had to send him out, but he was going to leave regardless with Scott Boras. Mm-hmm. So at least you recoup something. We get a guy like Michael King back. I think Michael King's going to be a stud, bro. Obviously, YouTube's the only thing I've really seen, right? YouTube and Fangraphs.
Sure.
But talking to some people, everybody's like, my buddies that are Yankees fans, they're pissed that they had to give up Michael King. Obviously, they're happy that they got Juan Soto, but they all think Michael King could be like an all-star caliber starting pitcher. So we got Musgrove, Yu Darvish, Michael King. Rest of the rotation right now is a question mark. That's a bad thing, right? Rotation, which was honestly our strong suit last year, right? Blake Snell was awesome. Joe Musgrove, when he pitched, was awesome. We had some dogs in that rotation last year. This year, rotation's worse. Lineup's probably a little worse. But Mike Schilt's the new manager. I think cutting ties with Soto, cutting ties with Bob Melvin, there's going to be a new energy in that clubhouse. I think we're going to have some younger dudes come up, try to fight for some spots, right? I think the Pods need a lineup full of dudes who are hungry in there last year. I think last year they thought our shit doesn't stink because we are selling out every night and we have all the talent in the world. And that's great, but you still have to win, right? And I think they learned the hard way that once you stop winning, you know, MLB Network's not going to be nice. Twitter's not going to be nice. They're going to cook your ass, right? And guess what? You can make $40 million a year. If you go on Twitter or Instagram and everybody's on your pictures like, why do you suck now? That affects someone. It doesn't matter what your bank account looks like. I think for these guys, I think Tatis is going to – obviously I'm a homer, but I think Tatis is going to have an Acuna-esque 2024 where Acuna in 2022 coming off that injury was still adjusting a little bit. I think he had like a 760 OPS, right? Like didn't really play as like to what we thought Acuna should be playing at. Obviously he was coming off an injury. Tatis had a similar year, even though he won the Platinum Glove too. I think Tatis, he's playing in the Dominican right now. That dude has something to prove, right, with all the off-field shit. He was pretty much given the reins as being the face of baseball and totally fumbled it, right?
Yeah.
What do? America loves a good comeback story. San Diego loves Tatis, bro. That dude comes in. He has a great year. Machado, hurt last year a lot, down year. Xander, when his wrist isn't bad, still a top 5 shortstop in baseball, in my opinion. He's a stud. He could hit. A lot of those dudes, right, you're like, all right, obviously they need to stay healthy, but I think next year, we won 82 games last year. It wouldn't surprise me if we win anywhere from I think the spread of where we'd win right now is 80 to 94 games. Dodgers are going to win a ton of games, obviously. But I think the Padres are going to be better because I think Mike Schilt, AJ Preller, these dudes know that if they lose this year and have a disappointing year, they're gone. They're gone. AJ Preller's been our president of baseball operations and GM for 10 years, right? He's made the playoffs twice. He's been objectively very disappointing, but he still has a job somehow. He was very close with Peter Seidler, our owner that died. Our owner's only wish, man, for the Padres was to win a World Series. That's all he cared about. That's why we went and handed all these crazy contracts out. Like, he wanted to win a World Series before he passed away. He passes away, I know every dude in that clubhouse, if they have even an ounce of a heart, are going to go balls to the wall in 2024 to try to make it to the playoffs and try to go on a crazy little run. Because, like we were talking about earlier, all you got to do is make the dance, bro. You make the dance,
right?
Get a good start, right? Boom. We beat the 106-win New York Mets and the 113-win LA Dodgers in 2022. We lost to the Phillies, who won 87 games or whatever it was, right? Like,
Right.
that's baseball now, right? It's getting hot at the right time. So I think the Pods, obviously, I'm also, if you follow us at all, you'll realize I'm a hopelessly optimistic guy. But I do think vibes are going up, man. Last year's vibes were terrible. And I think, like we said, building a little bit of a culture is going to be big.
And I think a key to building some of that culture, I mean, just like maybe a small part of it, but
Yeah.
one thing that I liked about Tatis is he is embracing the villain role. Okay, I don't know if you think everybody likes him, but
No.
I can assure you they don't. Because yeah, it's probably just more San Diego because everywhere's East Coast, other baseball fans like don't like Tatis for various reasons, whatever it is. Same thing with Machado. Machado's not a easy guy to root for his history and just kind of how he is. So I like, especially now that I live in Philly, I'm associated with all these fucking scumbags, and like Philly fans are the worst and Eagles fans are the worst. They're scumbags. So it's like there is a culture here where it's just literally it's us against everybody. It's nobody likes us, we don't care. Like that's the motto here. It's like their whole motto. Nobody likes us, we don't care. So you can kind of have that now in San Diego. Like you said, you have all these, it's like almost like an evil empire type thing, all these big names, big players. Nobody likes them outside of your little pocket. And I think that is really cool. And that will play like to your favor when it's just like, hey guys, like when you get in that clubhouse, it's us. Like fuck everybody else.
Yeah.
We're going to run shit. Like we're the best. And I think that really does play a part in like the overall culture.
I couldn't agree more. And I really think too with what the Dodgers are doing, the Dodgers are what the Yankees were in the late 90s minus the rings, right? Like they have minus the actual World Series like in hardware. They are what the Yankees were, right? Every team is going to see them on their schedule and be like, oh, here we go, right? Like, hey, like I want to go to that game, right? I want to see Yamamoto pitch and Shohei Ohtani hit and Mookie Betts and Freddie, right? And having them in your division, similar to what the Braves are for you guys as Phillies fans, right? I love that. Obviously, it's worse because I'd much rather be in the NL West than the AL Central. Are you kidding me? Playing 17 games a year against the Royals and the White Sox would suck. That's not fun. Spending 17 games a year against the Dodgers, those games are electric. You go on your group chats with your buddies from growing up who are Dodgers fans, or your buddies from college that are Dodgers fans or Giants fans. Like that's the fun part, right? Like,
right.
And that's like kind of to our point earlier. The teams that don't invest, when we play the A's, it's not that fun. You're a bunch of just fucking quadruple A guys, right? That you're like, there's no energy there. There's no energy at the ballpark. You go to Dodgers versus Padres. If you think anyone hates Tatis, Dodgers fans hate Tatis. One, because they're jealous that we have fucking probably the coolest dude in baseball, in my opinion. But two, Tatis was the beginning of what the Padres have kind of become, right? Before we were an afterthought, always. When Manny Machado signed with us over the Dodgers, that was the first inkling. And then when Tatis came up, the Tatis and Machado duo hated in LA. They hate him. And that energy, though, is what makes sports fun, dude. So, like, I love it, bro. I hope they embrace this kind of underdog bad boy vibe, right? Like, because everyone's going to be hyping up the Dodgers all year. Like, there's no doubt. And I would put a lot of money on the line saying they'll probably win the NL West, right? They haven't lost it in a long time, and they just got 15 times better. That being said, hey, man, you get the second wild card spot. We'll see you in the NLDS, Papa, right? Like, let's party. Let's party because those games, that is what sports are all about. That's why we're on a, hour-long podcast talking about it, bro. It's that energy, dude. That's what I love about this shit. Like, I love being the fact that, and that's what pisses me off about the Chargers leaving. I was like this for the Chargers too, but at least the pod stayed, bro. You stay,
right?
You care about a city, bro. You rep a city. You got Joe Musgrove from San Diego doing a bunch of charity stuff throughout the city, right? Like going to boys and girls clubs and doing all this stuff. Like, that's who I want to root for. And last year was disappointing, right? Anyone who says anything differently is lying or didn't watch the team. Incredibly disappointing year. That being said, best part about sports, spring training, pitchers and catchers report February 16th, right after the Super Bowl. Pete, we're locked in, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm ready to rock.
And it makes it honestly does make it better when you do lose, because you have to put your heart, your attention, your hope all into that team to have it crushed. It does, like, especially when you're such a big fan like us, it hurts. I'm not crying about it, but it's just like, yeah, dude, like, fuck. And it takes you a couple days to get over it, whether it's a Super Bowl loss or World Series or knocked out of the playoffs. But when it does eventually happen, and I saw it with, the Cubs in 14, 15, and then 16, because they got really close. They had they had good runs, and they ran into the Mets. But then when it does happen, you're just like, I went through the heartbreak, I went through the struggle, and now we made it. And that's the beautiful thing,
That's the beauty, dude. And that's the thing with San Diego, too, is like, and me and Mike say this on our little podcast thing, and then to our buddies all the time, is like, the fact that the Chargers left, and we've never won anything, a lot of people will be like, oh, loser town, right? Oh, you guys haven't won shit. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, objectively, that's probably a little true, right, if you're looking at only hardware. But the fans that are still, locked in, which are a ton, man. Like, the Padres have a great fan base, honestly, especially in San Diego. Mm-hmm. Like, people, you go to any bar, bro, it's just Tatis pictures and all brown and gold everywhere. When we do finally win that first one, man, this city's going to burn down, bro. Because
it's going to be a party.
There's guys, my friends' dads, who are 65 years old, man, who have been watching the team since they literally became a team. Like, those dudes losing, getting swept by the Yankees in 98, right, in the World Series. Like,
cheering on Tony Gwynn.
It grows. It grows within you. Like, what your point on, being sad. The saddest I felt, Padres fan-wise, and this was a good sad feeling, though, because it meant, like, it actually mattered. Being apathetic sad is the worst, right? When the Padres would win 60 games a year, you're just sad because you're like, this team has no future, right? We're screwed. The worst but best sad feeling I had was NLCS Game 5 against the Phillies. Robert Suarez versus Bryce Harper. Suarez throws probably the nastiest changeup I've ever seen. Bryce Harper somehow doesn't swing at it with 2 strikes. Next pitch, he hits it to left center field. Famous home run, right? Mm-hmm. That was the first time I've ever really been on the other end of a famous play, right? So, like, all social media posted, as a big baseball guy, I follow all these accounts, Bryce Harper home run with the Moneyball music and, like, all this stuff. And it's funny being on the other side because growing up, Chargers
I didn't even think about that, yeah.
But it's interesting being on the other side. And guess what? As much as it sucked in the moment, give me 10 more of those opportunities than a season where we don't make the playoffs, right? Because that's what being a sports fan's all about. You need those shot to the heart, right? Because then when it finally does become you on the other side, it's gravy, bro. That's like the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, right? My dad was grew up in Philly. Whole family's huge Eagles fans on that side. Them winning the Super Bowl, my cousins were crying, bro. Crying real tears.
Yeah.
Like real tears. They went down to downtown Philly and were partying in the streets. And like that shit is so special, bro. And like that's what a community, that's why I love sports. It brings community, right? You're sitting next to a guy, you're like, oh shit, what high school did you go to? Oh, do you know this person? You see him at a Padres game, you're like, damn, bro. Like it brings people together. Like, oh I'm at a, tailgate and I see my, PE teacher from 6th grade, right? He's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, and like that is what it's all about, bro. That's why I love sports. It brings people together. It gives, and that's why having a team like with you guys with the Phillies and us with the Padres, teams that give a shit is so much more fun to watch than teams that don't give a shit, man. And like that's huge. Like Dombrowski gets a lot of shit, right? He's a top 5 GM in my opinion. And people are like, oh, well, he just spends so much money. Guess what? Every team he spent money on, they fucking do well, bro. The Tigers were only relevant when he was the GM. You got the Red Sox who were sick, won a World Series. And then you got the Phillies who are a contender every year now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, having GMs like that spend money, who are down to put, Big Balls Dave or whatever you guys call him, like, that's lit, bro. Like, I love that shit, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes the sport better. That's what makes October special. Like, there is a definite vibe and a feel for when October rolls around. And, they had, that big song that everybody loves.
Yeah, Dancing on My Own.
And, you start hearing that again and you get the memories and the feeling of what it's like and those big games and those moments that are iconic. I mean, those are moments that will live forever in your city, like the Harper home run and, Castellanos catch or whatever. There's just, it's cool because you're going to see those for the rest of your life whenever they go to the playoffs and they're going to run that montage.
And when you have kids, dude, like when we have families and shit, right? Like when you're, kids 10 playing Little League, and you throw up on YouTube, you throw up on that clip, he's like, whoa. Like, I remember looking at, like, Tony Gwynn highlights before I was even, like, I'm 27, so I didn't really, like, gain like become a fan until you're like what 6 or 7 until you like remember stuff. So I never really got to watch Tony Gwynn, but like hearing how other people talk about him, Padres fans, I got to watch him, and then watching highlights. And his son is like played for the Padres. He's on a radio broadcast now.
Sounds just like him too.
Son's just like him, great guy too, and like their family is a staple in the San Diego community. And like watching that stuff, bro, and seeing how much he meant to the city is like so cool. And like that's the history aspect of sports, which I think is underrated. Like looking back, like I actually, in my Christmas stocking, my mom got me these baseball trivia cards, right? And so me and my brother have just been like, you know, kicking it, right? Like just like chilling, and I'll just like pick one out and like ask him some questions. And it's like little stuff like that, bro, like it brings people together. It's the history of baseball is awesome too. History of all sports, but baseball is special because you got from Jackie Robinson to so many different like iconic people that played the sport, and like George Bush's first pitch. Like there's so much stuff that has happened that like, especially with social media and YouTube now, like I can't wait to have kids and show them all this stuff, right? Like that's why I'm hoping before I have kids, we get a couple more Padres memories though, because right now I got like 4 videos, so I need to get a couple more in there.
But especially like the old stuff, like Ted Williams, one of the greatest hitters of all time, and then he goes to war and fights in a fucking war for what 3-4 years, comes back and then still does what he does, and it's just like, bro, these guys like played professional baseball, then went to war, and then came back and still handled business.
Dude, it's
that
crazy.
stuff is nuts.
It's crazy, man. And like, I don't know. I have seen baseball, right? I think the pitch clock's great. I think the new pitch clock rule is a little excessive. I think the pitch clock was awesome this year in the sense that like watching it on TV and stuff, even my friends that are, you know, had fallen out of baseball, like love with baseball a lot, every single one of them was like, dude, it's way easier to watch on TV now than it was, you know, when these dudes were taking 30 seconds to throw a pitch to home plate, right? I think the rules, I think things are going. I still think baseball is a little bit behind on the social media trends, but I also don't think that they need to, right? I think the NBA dives a little too deep into social media sometimes, and like they care a little too much about that. I think there's a happy medium where like baseball needs to be a little bit better with how they promote the game, but I also don't want it to become like banana ball, right? Like there's like levels to it where it's like a happy medium is fun. And I think like creators like you do a great job, bro, like spreading the word and like just, you know, like real passionate fans. I think you could tell from even like a minute clip, you could tell when someone really cares about what they're talking about. And I just wanted to shout out you, Pete, for like having me on this, but also, dude, like it's cool to see someone in the space that really like cares, right? And like is really just promoting. And I think there's more people out there too that you don't even need to be like a creator to do it, right? But it's just cool to meet people like that.
Yeah, I appreciate, man, that it means a lot. Because, yeah, I do care a lot, and I do try to put out quality stuff. I'm going to disagree with you on the social media stuff for, like, baseball. Like, I think MLB is terrible at marketing. They are, I think, the worst in all of sports at marketing. NBA lets you redistribute their clips. They want clips everywhere. MLB won't let you fucking screen record. I'm like, I'm trying to screen record something on like MLB app, blacks it out. The blackouts in make it make sense, dude. I'm gonna pay $160 something a year to get the MLB package, and the team that is 19 minutes down the road from me is blacked out. And I know there's TV deals and all that stuff, but if you want to grow the game and look down the line of how we're going to grow baseball and bring more money in, you need to create fans. You need to make it accessible.
Yeah.
You need to have these games on. Fuck these blackouts. You got to make the game accessible. Let people share clips online of home runs, of cool edits. That's where I think, like, yeah, the NBA is just like willy-nilly. Yeah, go ahead, share it, go ahead.
Yeah.
And MLB is like real tight butthole with it. They're like, we can't let you share that. So, you know, you have players like Mookie Betts. If he walked into, you know, a Kroger or a Wawa or whatever, nobody's gonna know who he is, and he's one of the best baseball players. You know what I mean? So like, it's just marketing these players, and you're seeing it now with Ohtani. Like we talked about, the Ohtani brand, the brand of Shohei Ohtani and what he brings. Like, Bregman doesn't have that power. There's no brand behind it. Michael Jordan has a brand. The Derek Jeter has the brand. So I think you're starting to see this a little more with like social media and teams, and like, hey, we can market you. We can market your swing, your catchphrase, whatever. And I think they need to catch up to a lot of other sports.
I agree with that. Yeah, that point is is pretty spot on, honestly. Especially the blackouts, man. The blackouts make no sense. Like, obviously, I understand TV stuff, but like, come on, like, how are you not going to allow, a dude or a lady that spends, $200 on MLB TV to watch the team that they want to watch, right? Like, that makes no sense. Like, why would you do that? Like, especially if you want to grow the game and you want to, hey, I want to watch what Bobby Witt's doing, right? Like, he's hit a home run the last 4 games, right? And I want to watch that. That's awesome. But you also want to watch your hometown team, right? Like, it's kind of bullshit that you aren't able to do that. I think Major League Baseball is definitely behind. I hope that they're learning. Definitely think the blackouts is probably the biggest issue, and the clips for sure, especially for guys like us who like want to post a bunch of stuff. But dude, it's tough, man. Like I just don't know, and that's like kind of an ownership thing too, right? Like how do you change that? I guess like do you just bring in like a consultant from the NBA? Like how does that work?
That's why I make these videos. I try to make some waves and be like, guys, it doesn't have to be like this. Or oh shit, my camera just went off. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, my camera died. So it's like that's why I make like these videos, so I can kind of make some noise and be like, maybe someone sees something and they're like, hey, this kid's kind of onto something, or maybe we can try this with marketing. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, I got some fucking good ideas. It's like, hire me. Like, you can be doing so much more for your team. But I digress.
You hear that? Hey, if you're watching MLB, hire our boy Pete, baby. 2 years, we'll be right there with the NBA. Honestly.
Oh man, dude, they would hate me. I talk so much shit about them. It's funny because you see the people that are hired by MLB and they're they got to be very tight-lipped about stuff. You can't talk about Rob Manfred like that. You can't do this. You can't do that. Yeah, exactly, dude. And I'm all freedom of speech. I like all that shit. So like I could never work for MLB because my brand is just too much in your face, more unedited,
Yeah, of course, dude. That's kind of similar with us too. Like, we'll call it how it is, at least how we see it, right? And yeah, dude, I think for baseball, big year coming up, right? Like, hey, like with the Dodgers thing going on, Soto as a Yankee, like there's a lot of storylines that are kind of coming up that I'm just like obviously super excited about. And I think they're doing a good job with the Seoul series, and when Padres played in Mexico City, now they're playing in South Korea. I think London, exactly. Like the moves that they're making there is great. It's becoming a more global sport than it already was. And hey, they got to work on some things, just like we all have to work on things. But I'm excited for next season, bro. I think it's gonna be great.
Me too, Matt. We're going to wrap it up here. Yeah. I'm sorry my camera died. Good. I need to get a thing that plugs into my computer into the wall because I just use like my battery.
Yeah.
So I got to get some kind of wire or something. That's my bad.
Dude, you're chilling, bro.
But we will get this. Matt, let everybody know where everyone can follow you, your handles, and all that.
Absolutely. So you guys could follow us, Devine Gospel, on Twitter. On YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, pretty much everywhere else, it's Devine Sports Gospel. Hit us up. We're always down. We do a twice a week live show on the Hog Watch, which is a pretty big, California baseball YouTube channel, which is really fun to check out. We'll always be posting when we do that. So that's me and my brother. And yeah, dude, we post a lot of clips, a lot of fun stuff. Like to interact. Just love sports, love content. So appreciate Pete for having me on.
Awesome, Matt. I'm going to go ahead and end this. Just stick around, and then we will see you guys next time. Matt, thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Happy holidays.